Bas, you, as a philosopher of science who's also a believer, have this wonderful statement that these studies of science and theology are mainly irrelevant or maybe altogether mistaken.
That is exactly what I think, because I think that in this literature, the divine and God's action are largely treated as quasi-scientific hypotheses. And that is a category mistake. It's not a subject of scientific inquiry.
So science has no effect on that question? I mean, can't even be allowed in the debating hall?
It's not a matter of not allowing science in. If somebody is going to do good science, then he's going to define a project, has to know beforehand what it is, tell us exactly what he's going to investigate, and what the range of possible answers is. Now, how is he going to do that with religion? Well, he can be a psychologist and just investigate what is happening in our emotions. He can be a physiologist, and he can investigate what's happening in our neurons and our blood chemistry. He can be a sociologist and look at the group dynamics, none of which touches for a moment at what's important about religion.
Now, some scientists or atheistic philosophers would criticize what you're saying as trying to put God in such a protected position with a moat and a wall so nobody can get at him.
Well, the theologians that I admire, and the philosophers of religion I admire, come from the existentialist tradition. To the existentialist, the encounter with God is a point where you are called to decision. It can only happen in moments of extreme beauty or extreme despair. It's not a question about how did the organisms come out of the primordial soup.
Doesn't that lay you open to the accusation that you're just, I don't know, some random spark in your temporal lobe has caused some ecstatic experience and now suddenly your life has changed when you can't have any argument to defend it?
Well, I mean, what is there to defend? If I have an emotion that there should be something happening in my brain and in my blood or whatever as well, that's not a surprise. Of course, my whole body reacts when I'm reacting intellectually and emotionally.
Well, the argument is that's not effect, that's cause.
Now, you see, cause and effect are metaphysical terms. Right. As an empiricist, I don't buy into this kind of metaphysics, right?
So what does that mean, that you don't buy into that metaphysic? I appreciate that in the sciences, but now you have an experience, it seems to be an ecstatic one or a beatific one or some transcendent one. You don't subject that to critique? I think if I want to believe in God desperately, and if I had an experience like that, it would scare me and I would almost run from God because I don't want to fool myself.
I think that the encounter with God is something that goes on all the time. But it's in the extreme moments that it becomes very clear. If I meet another person, I don't have a scientific investigation that leads me to understand that other person. If I understand another person, it's through empathy and sympathy.
But I know that person exists. I see them. They're in my visual field. I get their emails. I hear them on the phone. You know, I have some kind of sensory contact.
What is it exactly that you think should be justified? What kind of belief should be justified here? If I come away from a place and I say, this is a sacred place, then should I justify that by saying that there's something there that the scientist could not describe in some way? The scientist could go and take anything that he likes, and he wouldn't choose the word sacred.
Sure.
Right?
For sure.
Whatever he would come up with as in his report wouldn't begin to touch or to convey what is the importance of this moment.
Agree. I'm just not sure if that then enables us to go to the next step, that there's some fundamental reality behind that, or it's some superficial artifact, epiphenomenon of other things in our physical world.
I see a false contrast there. I can answer a religious question in religious terms, but not in other ways.
But shouldn't there be physical manifestations of religious reality if indeed God exists?
Yes, but I think that it's a matter of perceiving. When I look at the mountains, I see them as a manifestation of God's grandeur. The secular do not. When I meet another person and I see a soul shining through.
Do you see it?
I do in your case.
Well, that's good.